Our third speaker this morning is Brother Matt Norton from the Gosford, New South Wales Ecclesia. The theme for Brother Matt's classes this week is the return of Christ, and today's class is entitled The Last Days. Brother Matt.
Still morning. Good morning, brothers and sisters. How are we all? Sleep well last night? Okay. Jet lag's a funny thing, you know, it really is. Well, yesterday we tried to encourage one another with the main point that Jesus and his Heavenly Father really want us in the kingdom. Did anybody practice telling the kids? Shame on you. Oh, you did. Excellent. It's funny, I was in there with the 6 to 8s last night, and I asked them, you know, what would they do if Christ just came through the door? I asked them, and every single one of the things that I told you, they said again. Just like kids. And then one of them put up their hands, this little girl, and she said, "Yeah, Uncle Matt, you know what? One time there was this brother that stood up on the platform and said there was a message given and an angel appeared to us," and she told my story back to me. And I went, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." So I went, okay, word gets around quick. So that's good. People are talking about it. So today we want to look at, if we're encouraged and we think, you know, excellent, I'm going to be in the kingdom, we want to know, well, how long do I have to wait? So I want it to come now. And there's many things we could look at to show you that Christ is about to return to the earth. I want to look at an unorthodox sort of a way today. And we could look at, you know, if we looked at the drying up of the River Euphrates, for example. We all know that when the River Euphrates dries up, there's a certain city that becomes vulnerable and it's about to be destroyed. What is that city? Only ever related to the River Euphrates. Used to flow right through the middle of it in the old days. It's Babylon. It happened, didn't it? Cyrus the Persian caused the river to dry up. Medes and Persians came in, smashed the place. That's used as a little, you know, literal basis for what happens in Revelation. The Turkish hordes came in and the River Euphrates flooded across Europe. And for hundreds and hundreds of years, they had Europe in thrall. And then it dried up. And from the drying up back to the time of Turkey, it's the last days. And we're waiting for Christ to return, waiting for the kings of the east to arrive, and Babylon will be destroyed once more. Not the literal city of Babylon in the sands of Iraq, not that city, but the papacy's Babylon, the European system, where the stone will smite the image. We could look at that. And there's many things to teach us that Christ is coming soon. In fact, I caught up recently, well, it was actually a few years ago, with one of my old friends, just an acquaintance that I went to school with. And I saw him in a car park. My son and I were at the beach, and I saw this bald guy over there in the car park. And he looked at me, and like, I still have a little bit of hair, okay? You can probably see in the light that it's getting thinner. But I looked similar to what I looked like 20 years ago. He said, "You, Matt?" I looked at him and I thought, "Who are you?" I didn't have a clue. He said, "I'm Scott." I went. Anyway, we started teaming up. We'd meet regularly at the beach. Couldn't even believe it was him. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And about 3 months into, you know, going to the beach fairly often with our sons and hanging out a little bit, he said to me, "You know, Matt, are you still religious?" I went, "Yeah, I still read the Bible." And he said, "Oh." I said, "Why?" He goes, "What do you guys reckon is going to happen?" That's what he asked me. And I said, "Well, why do you ask that?" He said, "Because something's got to give." He could tell that we're in this last day scenario. He didn't even call it the last days. He just knew something big's going to happen. You could feel it in the air, can't you? Everyone knows things are simmering. And we know what it is. I told them exactly what's going to happen in terms of, when I say exactly, I said, we still believe a kingdom's coming. There's going to be a time of trouble, and that we're approaching that time now. It's crazy. Have you ever asked yourself and analysed the last days, the scenario of the last days and the effect it has on us as an ecclesia? What sort of, like when you think of a morning, you get out of bed, say a Saturday morning, do you leap out of bed with enthusiasm? Have you got energy to burn? Especially for the truth. I mean, I can tell you from my point of view, I think, wow, where's it gone? It's toxic. The last days are toxic. Do you have time for God? Do you have time for your family? Do you have time for your ecclesia? I mean, these are important questions. What effect are the last days having on us? So we just want to have a look at some of these things. A few current events. Some of them are humorous, but you get the idea. Like teachers can now get homicide insurance. I'm happy for that. Even though I work at a Christadelphian school, I'm still happy for that. At least they've got our back. There's a Texas man. He was booked at doing over 387 k's an hour. Has anybody ever done that speed before? That's too fast, isn't it? No matter how late you are, you're going too fast at 387 clicks. Of course, you call it miles per hour. 220? 230 miles per hour? Is that too fast here? I think it's too fast, isn't it? But if we're living a life that's too fast, I mean, you can get your prayers said for you, because people are saying, and I hope it's not in the truth, but churches are reporting their constituents are saying, I haven't got time to pray. Like, it's really good now. They take Visa. So it makes it easier for you. Think about that. Time magazine reports kids burning out at 9 years old. Do you know some of those kids? I think I do. Especially us, vicarious parents that are living out our life which we missed out on through our kids. Violin practice, swimming, hockey, maths tutoring, English tutoring, homework, time, every day. These poor kids, it gives me an aneurysm just thinking about it. This is the life in which we live. There's a woman who said she's developing a 5-day... I wish we had these when we had our kids, because the woman says the baby doesn't care. And she's, I just haven't got time. I don't know if that's real, sister. I'm not sure if that's real. But I read it and I thought, well, it's a good idea. Here's this Harvard uni man working really hard, hit the wall, boom, he had to take a 3-month sabbatical. He went to the doctors, they ran some tests. It came back, the doctors said, exhausted. Just had it. Knuckles dragging on the ground. Just couldn't do it anymore. And you think, yes, I know people like that. So the last days, a woman reports that her idea of a holiday is just to lay back in the chair at the dentist. Like, to me, the visit, who likes dentists here? I don't even know how that profession's legal. It is horrific. Dentists report falling asleep during root canal. I said this once in Adelaide, and one of the Lukes, you probably know them, they said, oh, I've had that. I'm a really good dentist. I thought, as if. This is interesting. This one at least is true. In 1967, this was a US Senate committee. They pooled their knowledge and they ran the data through all the primitive computers they had back then, like smart people. They said that by 1985, and just think about it, just let this hit you. By 1985, we'd be only working 22 hours a week and we'd be retired by 38. Now, that's 7 years I should have been retired now. It's not in sight, I can tell you, and I'm not working 22 hours a week. They said we'd be bored. Now, is that the reality of the new millennium? By 1980? No, it's not. The reality of the new millennium is this, brothers and sisters. I don't know if you know, but guess how many hours the average husband and wife are putting into work? Have a guess. 80 to 90 hours a week. That's incredible. So there's a reason why you're feeling tired, isn't there? 80 to 90 hours. So women are putting in 41 hours and the average men are putting in 48. But the poor women, when they get home, 41 hours is outside the home. When they get home, they've got domestic duties, 30 to 40 hours. So that's up around 80 hours a week. And it's tough for the men too. They've got 48 hours outside the home. And when they get home, they've probably got 1 or 2 hours of domestic duty. So that's getting up to 50. We understand what it's like. And life at home gets stressful. But there's a maxim that's never, ever, ever been transgressed. And it's this. Apparently no husband's ever been shot while doing the dishes. Now, life at home gets stressful sometimes, doesn't it? And for men, if you're feeling scared, just go and stand at the sink. Look, we'll keep moving. You understand. 36% of people are feeling rushed all the time. The average manager gets interrupted 202 times per day. 8 months of our lives are spent opening junk mail. I don't even look at it. I ask the kids, go and get me the mail, only which has my name on it. I don't want to see anything else. You guys can have that. I've got more things to do with my life than open junk mail. I cannot stand it. The letterbox is packed. Who wants to read that sort of rubbish? We spend a year searching for misplaced objects on our desk. Does anybody know how far the average misplaced object travels? Have a guess. Like 12 inches. That's it. Doesn't go anywhere. We've got more things. Average person, this is true, gets 2.5 hours less sleep per night than what we did 100 years ago. Now, you're probably nodding thinking, yeah, that's right. We're down to 7 hours. It's still going down. We can't live like this. Things have got to give. And you ask yourself, is this affecting our life and the truth? Einstein, does anybody know how many hours sleep he had? He said he needed 11 hours sleep. 11 hours sleep. Now, I've heard a footballer say, yeah, you know what? I only need 2 hours sleep. And I think, well, you got Einstein in one hand, and who are you likely to believe? Now, you can tell just by looking at me, I don't get 11 hours sleep. All right, I'm not that intelligent. More like 2. You get the idea, but we need more sleep. Surveys have come out, 22% admit to falling asleep while driving. 100 million people last year said, yeah, I drove when I was tired. That's just... And 54% of people are saying they're more exhausted after a holiday. How does that work? Because if you talk to, say, the older brothers and sisters here, if you go back 50 years when they had time off, they could take a week off, maybe in the summertime. They go down maybe to the beach, wherever, I don't know, where's the beach? Do you guys have beaches here? But somewhere, okay, somewhere. And for a week, you grab a book and you sit by, in a mouldy old cabin somewhere and you just vegetate for a week. And you recharge and you restore and you rejuvenate. And so that you go back and you're right for another 12 months. That used to happen. It doesn't happen anymore. I'm serious. It doesn't happen anymore. People say, when I get back from a holiday, I'm worse. It's hard to get back on the day-to-day treadmill again. They did a study in Israel and they got people who were frazzled, like depressed, burnt out people, just had it. And they got them, they gave them a 2-week break. And they managed to decompress, like give them a really nice time and decompress all the burnout parameters so that they felt good and they were fully restored again. And they threw them back into the day-to-day treadmill. It took 3 weeks, they were back to baseline burnout. Boom. And so there's the story behind that is that you can't just save up all your needs for a week off one time a year. We need to learn the strategy of ongoing renewal. Like we need to learn it for the truth. When people request of you time and effort and people come beside you and say, I've got a problem I need to discuss with you, you need to have time to listen and space. And yet everyone feels the last day scenario where your friend comes up to you and says, like, I want to tell you, like, I've got some issues I need to talk with you about. And they're your friend, but you feel in your head, I just haven't got space, I'm going to margin. And you just don't care, you want to care. You really love them, you really want them to be in the truth, you want them to be you're happy and appreciate that they're your friend, but you just haven't got any time. You felt like that? It's the last days. It's really, really hard, brothers and sisters. And, as much as we might laugh at some of those things, the last days are toxic. We've got to do something. There's something going on in the world that's causing people to be wheezing, worn out, overcommitted, overwhelmed. It's toxic to the truth. We drop the bucket down into the well. I think about this. We pull the bucket up. There's got to be something in our bucket. If your well's dry, which sometimes I feel like mine is, it's dry. If your well's dry, we've got to do something to get some water back in there. Renew our spirit. Find time. It's really, really difficult. So we live in a historically unprecedented age, and the short answer, like people go, well, why? Why is it all happening? Well, it's the last days, 2 Timothy 3. It's Luke 17. Every last day scenario is really bad, but ours is particularly going to be the worst. None of us are surprised at that, are we? The last days in which we live, right before Christ's return, is going to be the worst. And we're feeling it. But the thing that's causing it mostly, sorry for putting this up again, I didn't mean to just doubled it up. What is responsible for all this dramatic change is this thing called progress. Does anybody know what progress is? What's progress? What is it? Because I'm not having a go at progress. I mean, God told us go out and work on the earth. We need to progress. Like, what is progress? Yeah, it's change. Is it forwards or backwards? No, it's forward change. It's positive. So I'm not having to go, like, we need progress, but progress is happening at such a ridiculously exaggerated exponential rate that it is beyond our power to conceive. It's going too far forward, too fast. And it works. These are the 3 biggest words you'll ever hear me say. I had to look them all up too. This is how progress works, through differentiation, proliferation, and combination. So if we dragged a tree in here, like a whole tree, and we said, progress, could you differentiate the tree for us? You know what the progress would do? It would cut it up and make, little lecterns like this, and floorboards, and tables, and wooden spoons, and toothpicks. It would differentiate it. And then it would combine it to make other things. We understand how it works, and then 100,000 people say, that's a good idea. I'll have one of those. And it proliferates, and off it goes, and progress just keeps on happening. And it's okay. It's not going to slow down because, as we'll see soon, there's more people on earth, and progress is strapped to the amount of people we have, and it is moving ahead. There's no way either the Democrats or the Republicans are going to say, let's just ease off on progress. It's moving ahead. And we have this problem that progress, it's not all good. We need an escape hatch with it. We need to understand about progress and how it's going to affect us, because it's going to always, to remember that word, always, it's going to always give us more and more of everything faster and faster. And it's coming at us at 100 miles an hour. And it's going to lead to an increase in stress, change, complexity, speed and overload. Absolutely. Every single day of our life. And I read a few books on this a few years ago, and I thought, that's it. It articulated which I felt, but I couldn't get it out. Because we're all swimming in this river. Whether you agree with this or not, you're in it. Culture is happening to us. We need to understand it so that we can articulate, so we can judge it and say, hold on. If this is toxic to the truth, I've got to do something about it. It's the last days, it's important. And so take the first one, stress, for example. Stress. Is stress a bad thing? Is stress bad, brothers and sisters? What do you think? Well, it depends, doesn't it? How do we normally, in what sentence do you normally hear the word stress used? Yeah, that's right, I'm stressed out. But value, it's neutral. One of the definitions of stress is our ability to adapt to change. So I can put these slides up, and each one is a change. And your body, physically, your mind is adapting, and you can handle that. But if I keep pressing that button like that, like some people when they're doing public lectures and they have 150 slides, and you go, oh, that's too much change. It's too much to adapt to. We need stress in our life. Stress is not bad, but there's hyper-stress, which that's bad. I'm not saying we need a hyper-stress environment, but we need some sort of stress in our life. Like, for example, the Australian government says to me at tax time, Matt, I'm going to give you a $2,500 rebate. That's stressful. It takes me time to adapt to it. I will in time, but I'll accept that. There's a positive amount of stress is good. We need stress. In fact, they've done studies on it. They put people for a whole month on a low-stress environment and a high-stress environment. Not hyper, high. Have a guess which one they chose they would rather. High. Every single one of them. I mean, you might think, well, I'll make that decision for myself. But the kids have got a name for the low-stress environment. Guess what that is? Boring. It's like, it's just been 10 years since you were there, so you don't realise how much you hate boring as well as the kids do, right? We hate it. But we need a certain amount of stress in our life. But the moment stress, there's too much stress. If I said to, took our brother chairman here and just parked him in the chair and said, I'll give you no stress, I'll come and check his pulse in 6 months, he'd just be a skeleton, right? He'd be dead. We need some stress in our life. But I'm not exalting a hyper-stress environment. What I'm trying to say, brothers and sisters, is we've got to be pro-martyr. We have to be excited and fast and lifting the burdens and take some stress on in terms of the truth in our life. Yes, we need that stress. But I'm not exalting a hyper-stress environment at all. Because if we push beyond a certain limit, our physical energy will go down, our productivity will go down, we'll make mistakes and problems, there'll be cracks in our armour. Too much stress is not good. Too much stress is not good. And everybody's seen a brother or a sister who's had a breakdown. You may have even had one yourself. Everyone's been close to it before. I had one of my good friends from Brisbane back home. If you looked at a brother and said, I want to be like that brother in the truth, he was always active, he was supportive, he was always at the meeting. He never said to his friends, I haven't got time for you. He would always take people's burdens on him to himself. He was an amazing brother, but he hit the wall. He didn't even know what was happening to himself. He'd go home and do all the normal things, take the bins out, he'd play with the kids, he'd be there with his wife, but when they'd all go to bed, for 2 weeks he sat on the lounge, he never slept. He just sat there sweating, heart going like this, didn't know what was wrong with him. 2 weeks and then it was over. They checked him into hospital. He was gone for like a good 2 months. And when he came back out of that, it took a long time too, at least 12 months for him to get the wheels back on the wagon and come back. He knew that he was not the same as he once was. He could still take on stress, but not as much as he had. And he had too much on. He had to give away things. He had to judge the environment in which he was in. It's never been a more difficult time in which to live, brothers and sisters, and we are living in these last days. Now, what about change? Because as you can see, it's giving us a lot of change. Now, we used the word exponential before. Everyone's seen the graphs. Like, I teach English, okay? I don't know math. So the math, if I show you any math, it's been done by other people. I've been told it's really good. But you've seen a hockey stick curve graph, an exponential graph, where the upward thrust is going almost vertical. Everyone's seen that. Is there any maths teachers here, by the way? There's got to be some. There is. I knew I can't get away with it. You can't say anything. All right, I better make sure these sums are correct then. So we're getting change at such an exponential rate. Our heads are spinning. There's too many things happening. We've seen so much change just in our own lives. And is change good? Of course it's good. God, do I look perfect? Are you perfect? God has changed for you to do. We know that. And the world is changing rapidly. So I'll give you an example of how exponentiality works. Like, for example, I don't even have a bit here, but if I took that piece of paper there and folded it, everybody knows, how many times can you fold a piece of paper? Yeah, right, 6 or 7 times, and it gets really fat. But if you imagine, just think for a moment, suspend all your disbelief and we fold that piece of paper 40 times. Guess how wide that piece of paper would be? It would go from here to the moon. Only 40 times, and you go, what? Hold on, that just went by me, I can't conceive that. And it's true, it just goes way by, because from day to day, exponentiality is happening on a daily basis, but we don't see it until you graph it. So take, for example, the population. Have a guess when we reach the first billion people on Earth. Because there's around about 7, nearly 8 now. Guess when we reach the first billion? It was last century. No, the century before. Because we're in see, I'm not good at maths, I told you. 1800, someone said, it's you, 1 billion, congratulations, you get the gold star. 1 billion people. 1800. 1800 years, like BC, for whatever, there's war and pestilence and people dying. 1800 years, 1 billion people. And then just 130 years later, whoa, what happened then? 2 billion people. And then only 30 years after that, 3 billion people. 15 years later, 4 billion people. How many years is that? Is that 12? 5 billion people, and then, that's harder, that's 11. 11 years later, there's 6 billion people. It took 1,800 years to reach a first billion, then only 200 years. And from day to day, you don't even notice that. 6 billion people are on the earth now, and you think, there's no elbow room. There's 7 billion, I think, elbow room. So if you graph that, that's what it looks like. Nothing until all of a sudden, everything. And up it goes. There's the graph. That's what it looks like. And it doesn't matter what you graph today. How many plastic bottles are being used? It's like that. How many cars are on the road? It's like that. How many pamphlets are given out in your letterbox? Junk mail? It's like that. How many shirts are sold? It's like that. Everything is tied to how many people there are, and everything is exponential, and it's getting out of hand. Another good example is the Pacific Ocean. I shouldn't have all these examples in, but I at least think they're interesting. It's 100 square million kilometres. It's got enough room for all the land mass in it, plus room for another Asia. And just imagine it dried up, and it's our job, should you choose to accept the mission, is to fill it. And we start with one drop of water, just a single drop, and we keep doubling that drop. Everyone's done this on a chessboard with a grain of rice before, probably, this little experiment. Think about it in your mind, because I want you to grasp what exponentiality is. So we start with a single drop. So we double it first, it goes to 2 drops, then we double it again, it goes to 4, we double it again, it goes to 8, double it again, it goes to 16. You've got to help me now, it goes to 32, and then 64, and then I'm checking out. What does it go to then? All right, so we're only up to 8 doublings, say. I've just put it out there. How many doublings do you think it'll be until... I mean, we can hold 128 drops in our hand. We've got to fill this ocean. How long is it going to take? How many doublings? See, someone always says, 16. No, it's more. I get more excited when someone says, 1,000, Brother Matt. I go, no, it's not. It's only 80, right? It's 80. Now, again, it goes past our minds, because at the 70th doubling, it's only 1/10% full. It's been muddling along this dry bed of an ocean, and for the 70 doublings, there's hardly enough water to wet our feet, and then all of a sudden, it just goes whoosh. That's exponentiality. In fact, at the 79th doubling, it's only half full, then boom, it happens, just like that. That goes completely beyond our intuition, that sort of thing. And so we live right in this vertical thrust. And if you've heard about it so many times, how the older generation can't understand the younger generation. Like, I can't even understand the generation above me, hardly. But because the older generation who were born back, say, in the, the 40s and 50s, life was still starting to get going. But by the time we hit the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it is exploded. We live with it. I was born in this. And that's why the generations are slammed against each other. They say we're going to go through, in the next 20 years, another 100 years worth of progress. In fact, the last 100 years has seen more progress than in all human history. So you get this guy called Shakespeare. You took a snapshot of the world when he was born, and fast forward to when he died, a little bit more than about 100 years, a little bit more than what his lifespan was, and there would be hardly any measurable difference. The roads were still dirt. They were still throwing out raw sewage straight out the window. Nothing had changed in 100 years. In the last 100 years, we've seen more change than in the whole of recorded history. We're living in the last days. It's massive. And as I said, 20 years' time, they say we're going to go through another 100 years. And this guy called Ray Kurzweil, you should look him up, Ray Kurzweil. He's predicted so many things about economies and technology, and they've been accurate for the last 30 or 40 years. He's amazing. He thinks in the next 100 years we're going to go through 20,000 years of change, except it won't, because it can't. That's impossible. There's no way our Heavenly Father will sit still for that long. We're living right at the peak. Something's got to give. We talk about speed. Look at that. Man's going too fast for a world that's round. Sooner or later he's going to catch up with himself in a great rear-end collision. Like, speed's good too. I like speed. I want you to go fast. I don't want you to be lazy. I want you to be enthusiastic and energetic in the truth. But at too fast, reliably, things will go wrong. So the world's going fast. Why are we still doing... What's the speed limit out on the interstate for you guys? 70 miles an hour, okay? 70 miles an hour. So it took Brother Bob, it took us about 2 hours to get up here from Dulles Airport. Why can't they just up the speed limit, 10 miles an hour every month for the next year? So we can, that's right, why can't they? So we can get from Dulles to Shippensburg in like 40 minutes. That'd be better, wouldn't it? Because we understand this. You teach your kids, go fast, work harder, bear the burden, but not too much. We've got to learn when we're going too fast. Because the world at the moment is going too fast, and we are absolutely overloaded. You're overloaded, brothers and sisters. We've got too much, and we need some space. Think of margin is space. You need some margin in your life, some space. So you can carry, say Pete here can carry 5 bricks, and that's his maximal capacity. 5 bricks. I put one more brick on Peter, what is he in? He's in overload. It's too much. He's got to know when he's overloaded. He's got to be aware of that. No, I've got to learn to say no. It's too much for me. And we need space in our life. I mean, you could drive with the car in front 2 inches from your own bumper, but it's not wise to do that. You need some margin there. We live with margin around us, but we don't give ourselves margin in our own time, in our own finances, in our own emotional state, and physically. We live in a marginless world without space. As I said, this poor sister who comes up to you and says, I need to talk, and we go, I just haven't got time. That's not good. What's at stake? These are like, and how do I know? You think about it. If you are moving up to 100% and you're going to have no more margin in your life and you're maximally loaded, how do you know when you're getting close to that line? And when you step across the line and you go, right, I'm in overload now. I mean, that's a good question, isn't it? Because you're going down the interstate in your car and your car feels overloaded in some way, you get a flashing red light. It's not on the end of your nose. The car will tell you, pull over, get something checked out, slow down. We need to know what's at stake. Look at these things. These are the things that are at stake in our life. Think of this from a spiritual point of view. Our productivity. What are you getting done for God in the truth? And it's not about doing things for God so that you can go tick, get the tick of approval. I've earned my salvation. I've earned God's... It's not what I'm talking about. It's just showing love. Who loves to come home and the house is an absolute mess and everyone's just laying around tired and they can't help in the house? No one likes that. That's my place. Your productivity goes down when you live in a hyper-stress, overloaded, marginless environment. And I'm sure we can all feel this. Look at that. Your longevity. Man, there's some stories about that. Morale. Where's our excitement and our joy and our passion for things and our morale for the truth? Our desire to go to the meetings. Our desire to be with our brothers and sisters. Where's that gone? And I feel it. You probably feel it too. I mean, the Bible talks a lot about blessing. It means to be happy and joy. It's our birthright. Do you know what's the gospel mean? What's it mean? It's good news. Do you know why you tell somebody good news? Because it makes them feel happy. And sometimes it's the most simple things in life and we go, where's all my happiness gone? And our service to God, everything that affects our godliness. We need to judge these things, brothers and sisters. These things are very, very important. And when you hear Christians say they have no joy any longer, it's not good. And so you get these symptoms, and you can probably see yourself there. Not all of them, I don't have all of them, but headaches have gone up, I know that. How many people get heart palpitations, high blood pressure? Or withdrawal? What about Monday? Like Mondays, just can't get out of bed. I just cannot face work. I don't get that, even when I have Year 9 on Monday, so it's still okay. But people have these symptoms. You could probably pick them out and go, that's my symptom complex there. Burnout and exhaustion. Relational problems. You throw a person who's marginless in an overloaded state into a half-yearly business meeting context and see what relational problems start to show. We've all seen it. It's not good for the truth, is it? Or in an A-B meeting when you just haven't got any patience and no time and you're pressed to get things decided and it's not working out. It's not fun. And this is what we have to take into consideration, brothers and sisters. It's really happening. And so we need to know our individual symptoms. And for that you need to be true to yourself. And you need to say to yourself, man, that is me right there. And what about moral failure? There's a lot of that. A massive amount. Because people just don't care anymore. It's all about them. They just need to feel better. You need to know our individual symptoms. So just imagine for a second. I'll role play it for you, okay? A little bit of drama. 80%, 100%, and then 120%. This is in overload. Some of us feel like we're living at 150% sometimes, but 80% is good. These are the people who are new in the truth, right? They're just baptised. It's excellent. You know when you were there, you can remember it perhaps. You got 80%, and you've got time and space in your life. You get that phone call, and the recording brother says, could you fill in for Bible class or some duty in the truth, whatever it is, some duty in the truth. Could you fill in? And you might say, well, wow. Really? You asked me? Thanks for asking, because I've got a spare class up my sleeve and maybe, I don't mind doing that, sure. That'd be great. Thanks for asking. You hang up and you're feeling really good about yourself. And then you get the phone call, hello, it's the superintendent for Sunday school. We've got a family that's going to do mission work for 3 months and we've got this little class. It's not a very big class, but would you take Sunday school for 3 months for us, please? Kids would love to have you. And you go, that'd be great. I'd love to have them. I love kids. And it'd be good to get back into the Sunday school lessons. You know what? Yeah, I'll do that. Sign me up now. That'd be fantastic. And you hang up from that and then you get home on a Friday afternoon. Your wife says, that new family in the truth? They've been there for 6 months. We haven't even had them over to our house. And you go, ring them up right now. Let's have them this evening. You go, really? Let's have them this evening? Let's do it. That's at 80%. Everyone's been at 80%, or maybe you can remember what it was like when you had all that time and that enthusiasm. You move down here a little bit and you get to 100%, you get the phone call that says, Brother Matt, could you fill in for the Bible class this week? And he goes, I'd really like to, but you should see my calendar at the moment. My plate is really full. I'd really like to and everything, but if I said to my kids and family, I'm doing another Bible class, I'd just they'd annihilate me. I'll do it this once. I'll just do it, okay? I'll do it. And you get off the phone and you go, what's happened to me? I used to be so willing and generous and have so much time. And you get the phone call you want to take Sunday school? That family, they're gone for 3 months, mission work, we thought of you. And you go, I'd love to do that, but I can't right now, If you could keep me in mind down the track when life gets a bit better, there'll be a space that'll open up down the track further, but not right now. And then you get home on a Friday evening and your wife says, let's have that family over, and you go, well, that's a good idea, but it can't happen now. I mean, what are we in? Is it July? What about January? Let's look through our calendar. After Christmas, maybe January, we can open up a day. And she says, that's a good idea. And both of you are running at 100%, but then you move down to 120%, things are getting a little hectic, okay? You get the phone call and the superintendent or the recorder says, Brother Matt, would you fill in for Bible class? And you go, hold on, stop right there. I'm sick and tired of everybody dumping problems on my lap. No, you take me off the speaking list. I'm not, in fact, don't worry about it. I'm shifting ecclesias. I've had enough. Boom. And you hang up from that. Like this phone call over here, you felt bad. You don't even feel bad. You feel justified now because you're so irritable and angry. And you get the phone call from the superintendent that says, 3 months of teaching Sunday school. And you go, what? Whatever make you think I'd do that? I hate kids. You're an idiot. And you slam the phone down. And I've done this before, and brothers and sisters go, yeah, you know, you think you're overplaying it. And, you don't know what my life's like. It's really bad. And I've felt like this before. Sorry if you're on the end of the phone there and you get home on a Friday afternoon, your wife says, let's have that family over. You go, I'll tell you what I'm going to do on Friday now. I'm going to push the fridge over near the bed. And I'm going to barricade myself in the room and I'm going to watch movies all weekend. I'm not coming out till Monday. You do whatever you want. Now, that's me. I'm the nasty one, okay? So in which of those 3 stations, brothers and sisters, are you more likely to reflect Christ? In which of those 3 stations are you more likely to go the extra mile for your brothers and sisters and enthusiastically, energetically give yourself to the truth? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? And yet, we're not making the decisions necessary. And we've got maybe a few moments because people say to me, oh, but, what are we going to do about it? You know what to do about it. I've got a few slides we can flick up there and maybe go through, but I'm not going to teach you anything you don't know. I hope just seeing what progress does to us helps you to go, well, yes, too fast, too much change, too much complexity, which we didn't even touch on. Any 2-bit mechanic can make things complex, but simple things in life, they're gone. Too much speed, too much overload. We need more margin. How are we going to do it, brother? Do we need to do it? It's the last days. No other world time scenario has ever been so tense as this. To the point where things are breaking down all around us. There's cracks and there's rust showing, where we start to think the Bible doesn't work. The way we've been doing things all these years, it doesn't work, and we're not aware that it's the culture we're living in that's causing the cracks. We're trying to do too much, get too many things. It's a nutty world in which we live. So just to summarise, the age in which we live is historically unmatched. We just said that. There's a new epidemic called exhaustion. We're all in it. And progress is killing us through stress, change, complexity, speed and overload. And people say to me, Matt, slow down when you talk. Slow down. It's crazy if you graphed it. Ecclesially, are we affected? Absolutely. We could turn up all the quotes to show what the last day scenario are going to be like, and you go, well, yes, I've seen that 100 times. I'm giving you a reason today. Why? Morally, people are just checking out, and fundamentally we're flawed. It's because of these things, and it's really affecting our ecclesias. That's the biggest point there. No, that doesn't work. Point with this. That's it. All of this points to the nearness of Christ's return, like no other age in which we've lived. We've got to hold on. Get a little bit of margin in our life. We need to make ourselves available for God. So how could we restore a little bit of margin in our life? Well, we've got to want to do it, okay? You've got to be intentional. You can't just get to the end of the week and go, oh, it didn't happen. You've got to put it on your fridge. You've got to put it in front of your kids and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it on Monday night. We're going to do this on Tuesday. Who thinks, I mean, don't put your hands up, but think about this. It's rhetorical. Who feels like they're doing less readings with the kids than what they used to do? Who feels like they're praying less with the kids than what they used to do? I mean, I feel like that. I mean, I say it, I'm ashamed, but that's how I feel like it. And it's not just it's a feeling, it's true. History is something that happens to people. What happens is always different from what people would rather have done. Every time I do this talk, I think to myself, that's right. Get your act together, Matt. Learn to say no. Now, I love a week. A week planned out. On Monday night we've got this going on. Tuesday night we've got that sporting night out. And Wednesday night's class. We get that Thursday night. And then you go, like, the whole week's taken up. Friday night we're just going to have a night at home, and it gets taken up too. And you go, where did that happen? And the word no. It's not a swear word. You can say it. Say no. If you've got 36 hours of things to do in your life this day, you're not going to let it happen. If you had 24 hours worth of things to do and every one of them came back to back and you're maximally effective and you were that organised and it all started to happen, you could come at the end of the 24-hour period and go, look at that, look what I did. But one thing goes out of control. One little thing, you get a flat tyre, or you have an argument with one of the kids, or something happens and the whole day will cascade out of control. We've all had days like that, but that's what our days are like, from day to day, back to back, revolving doors. It's incredible how much stress and pressure are under. We need to say no. This is massive, taming technology. People feel like if you're going to get triggered, when you say, could you turn your phones off? That triggers people these days. We think we need these all the time. They're on the table during dinner, when once there used to be a family rule, no one answers the phone during dinner. Are you kidding? There's 6 or 8 people sitting at our table, probably, 5 of them have got mobiles, cell phones. My brain doesn't even have a space to go, everybody put your phones away. But we've got to learn to tame technology. Time-saving devices. Guess which countries are the most stressed out countries? All the countries with the most time-saving devices. It's ironic, isn't it? But that's us. We need to selectively discontent. Now, there's a difference between felt choice and actual choice. So I feel like I've got no space and I can't do anything. I can't open up any more space in my life. It's easy. And I'm not, I don't know if I could do this. I'm sure we've done it once with the kids, but it was so long ago I can't even hardly remember it. You want some space and margin in your life? It's a Tuesday afternoon and you're stressed out. Everybody's stressed. Just walk out the back to your circuit breaker, one that says, mains, switch it to off. You'll have all the margin that night you ever want. Just do it once and see if your kids like it. Make a little fire in the backyard. Cook your meal over the fire. Get some marshmallows out. Sit around with them, the grandkids, and have some fun. Play board games under candlelight. And see if you enjoy it. Do it once a month and say, hey, that was a good time. Tell me if it was any good. I don't know if I can make that decision yet. But you could do it. See, there's a difference between actual choice and felt choice. We know what it's like. We've got to simplify. Back there. And unclutter. Everything we own owns us. Why? Because we've got to maintain it. You've got a stupid car, you've got to wash the thing. You mow the lawn. I can't stand it. Look at that. It's a 80-20 rule. We only use 20% of what we own, and we maintain 100% of those things. We only use 20% of what we own. Are you serious? This makes me laugh. I think of this so much. So I could literally go back to my place and get rid of 80% of the things I have and still have a good life? I mean, where do they get these numbers from? And I want to know how they got into my house in the first place. Like, seriously. Throw off the things that hinder you. 80%. Cultivate contentment. Those quotes there tell us to be content. If be content wasn't written in the Bible, it'd be out of print by now. Who do you ever hear saying in life, be content? No one talks about contentment anymore. We live in the age of discontent. Give a man everything he wants, and at that moment, everything will not be everything. There's always more and more of everything, faster and faster. No one's ever been satisfied yet, except that's why God gave us the gospel, to satisfy our every need. And we're labouring under the misapprehension, brothers and sisters, that it ain't working. And I don't feel satisfied. I don't feel satisfied just as a brother in the truth. I don't feel satisfied just as a sister in the truth anymore. It's not what I'm looking for. What are you looking for? This life is like, and it's gone. And we're going to go off into eternity. And we're super focused on this life. I get focused on this life. And this life is not what it's about. We've got to learn contentment. Slow the pace, stop hurrying. As we said, fast is okay, but not too fast. This is hard. I mean, you know, how hard is it for especially young families? Big families control too much debt. We have control debt, right? We have too much debt. We want too much. And we think, oh, we get our needs and our wants mixed up. And we could talk about every one of these. We've got to finish now. You get the point. The big one, nourish relationships, particularly in the truth. Have time for your brothers and sisters. When someone says to you they have a problem, make that mental effort to have some space and listen and be supportive. You're going to be there one day saying, hey, I need to talk with you about something. Cultivate a network of caring brothers and sisters. Good brothers and sisters are good for your health. Do you know if you just sit in this disclosure effect, it's really good? It's cathartic. I've got a problem. You don't need to fix it. Just me sitting down with you and telling you my problem makes me feel better. Do you know that? It's an actual thing. And it makes me feel ashamed when I just go, oh yeah, hurry up. When someone's trying to tell me their problem, they need to get it out. Just let them get it out. And don't do the male thing, which is, I know, I do it all the time. Oh, look, just do this, this and this. Don't worry about fixing it. Just listen to them. You'll make their day, make them feel better. We need to nourish relationships. So there's the last day scenario, brothers and sisters. It tells me Christ is so close. We just got to hold on. Try and do some of these things.